big prize pool. He wants that big payday. He wants to be the world champion, and can he do it? In the bottom right here from Team NV, the Blue Terran, he is Maru.
Ready to rock and roll, and his opponent in the northwest position, we have the red Zerg player. He is Rogue.
Right, Dragon Phoenix Gaming's Rogue. Brand new teams for both these players. Previously on Jin Air, obviously Jin Air closed its doors to all of its gaming division there for the esports divisions, League, StarCraft, etc. But they've got new homes, and rightfully so. Both these guys are too damn good to not be on teams.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I mean, I feel like Envy's a team we've heard about for a while, but Dragon Phoenix Gaming, how can you not be a fan of a team that just has that name? You know, it's so on the nose, but it also very much just says everything that you need to know about him. Command Center first opening out of Maru to start off a best of 5. Maynard, you know, this is something that I like to see. This is some would say potentially an anti-Maru build almost.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is used to making his barracks first, and sometimes on the other side of the map, Nate, and sometimes with 2 other barracks next to it. So going CC first here is just super greedy, obviously, on Death Aura. He's getting the 2 gases next, though, so is going to be following up at the factory as quickly as humanly possible for him. And, I mean, he's just taken, obviously, a bit of a risk here, hoping that Rogue isn't doing some crazy pool first build or something like that. You know, early Roach War and something like that could really, really hurt him. But as most Zergs do tend to do these days, and Rogue is no different, just going to rely on Overlords for scouting. So he's not going to know until it's too late to do anything about it.
Yeah, and it's a long map, right? So that the opportunity to get that information super quickly is not always going to be there. He does get the second barracks. I was going to say, when you see this type of opening out of Terrans, usually if you go barracks into double gas, you're pretty weak, you're pretty vulnerable early on. You don't have that wall in the main base because your second supply depot comes really late, and that rush up to factory can leave you a little bit exposed. But I kind of like this. He gets that quicker second barracks, so he's got the command center first economy, but he's not forcing himself into like a Hellion opener or anything like that. He could still go there eventually, but this looks a little bit more like he's setting himself up for what's going to be a kind of different variation on that 2-1-1, not out of a Reaper expand, but out of a fairly economic opening. And I don't mind it. This is kind of a cool way, I think, to start this series off. It's not something that you've seen a lot in this tournament, if not at all. I don't think I've seen anybody open quite like this in this tournament yet. So I like it. I like it a lot, Maynard. Command Center first builds are fun, easy ways to get lots of SCVs quickly. And if you're not being attacked early on, well, there's not too much the other player can do to punish you for it.
It feels like there used to be one version of the 2-1-1 back in 2016, Babby's first TVZ build. But now there's like at least 3 or 4 variations of the 2-1-1 we've seen. Like Bjorn's invented kind of the guy that popularized the build back in the day before he went to his military service. And then he's come back and he's changed it again, like the fast third CC variety. Then there's the CC first variety we're seeing here from Maru. It's just a build that keeps on giving.
Yeah. Oh, I love the way that you described that too. You know, the evolution of StarCraft strategy. Babby's first TVZ build, that old Reaper expanded to 2-1-1. You know, that's for ages what 0 to 4, and then you move up to the next level, and you're like, all right, now I'm doing CC first 2-1-1. All right, this one you're gonna need to at least be in pre-K for this, maybe first or second grade. It's a little bit more of a cost versus benefit analysis that you're going to get into for doing builds like this. As you know, there's not even a bunker here, right? So if you are up against random ladder guys, like I'm going to just try and flood you with a bunch of lings early on because I think you're going to be greedy, you might just straight up die. It's not something that you can just blindly throw out there. You need to have some level of expectation that you won't be punished for not having your wall early, or you won't be punished for having that bunker. You won't be punished for having Hellions. The Zerg economic structure, when they get that larva up early on, if they want to bring that pressure, they can outproduce you. So you need to be very cautious about that. We see the 4 supply depots put at the front of that natural, though. And look at this, straight into an armory with it and the reactor on that factory. So this isn't that normal 2-1-1. I mean, we might be looking at an adult 2-1-1 here, Maynard, because we're going to have Hellbats with this.
I mean, this one's definitely a choking hazard, Nate. Make sure that your kids are old enough to run this build on the ladder, because it's going to be Hellbats Obviously, that leads into Drilling Claws Widowmines later as well, or rather just Widowmines that can burrow without Cloak. Rogue going for the fast Carapace upgrade as well, just the Evo quickly enough to get that Carapace upgrade for his Lings and potentially Banelings later on. But at the moment, the Zerg still seems woefully unprepared for this early game Terran push. The Queens, obviously, they can tank quite a bit. They're pretty fantastic, and there are a few of them, but it still feels like the army of Rogue is not quite there yet.
Yeah, it seems like he set himself up for what a normal attack might be, where you'd be like, oh yeah, that Carapace with 8 Queens, you should be fine. But this is not only a ton of Marines, but there's Hellbats. The Baneling Nest has only just started, and he's building Spore Crawlers, Maynard. Blissfully unaware of that which has now arrived upon his doorstep. And I like that the Hellbats are also in the back a little bit. Keep the Zerglings from getting us around, because the Marines, if they fight, they're going to have to go head-to-head against those Queens. So the Lings become very, very important. However, there are a lot of them, and there are a lot of Queens with a good amount of energy. So I think Rogue is in a position where if he controls this properly, he should be okay. But even just the threat of him moving up this ramp and killing creep tumors, he cancels that hatchery in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it's already pretty nice to have that 4th cancelled here, and Maru is heading really quickly into his 2nd factory, and he is triple producing Widowmines right now back at home. Way cool style here from Maru to actually handle straight up Lingbane. It's very, very modern, but it is really effective. Seen Cure do it a lot, seen TY do it a lot in this matchup. Big fan of it. And Maru is going to be basically one step ahead of this tech path of Rogue, of course, until the Hydras and potentially Lurkers later on get into a more scary number. You can definitely punish a guy with a lot of Widowmines with an army like that. Maru picking a different angle here, going to try and poke that 3rd base. He's being so patient with this army. Really felt like he had a better window there to just sort of be a little bit more aggressive, hit him before he had those defenses up, but incomplete information and all, he can be forgiven, and he has forced to cancel on that 4th at least once, and may try it again here. It is still a little bit lower in hit points, but Rogue, foreseeing that angle, seeing a weakness in his armor, he's like, nah, you know, we're going to have everything on the front door here. I don't know if the Terran's going to get a cancel this time. Oh...
It's going to come up the ramp there. As we've talked about, there are a lot of Queens here. That +1 Carapace is ready, but there's the mine drop at the same time. This must have been Maru's plan the whole time. 9 drones picked off by the mines. I was going to say with only 1 medevac, he couldn't actually lift up the whole army that was out there. But if you don't have the Spore in place, if you don't have the Overseer there early on, these Widowmines can get really annoying, because, I mean, I almost expect them to either be, maybe you try to move them around a little bit or pick them up at the medevac at the last second, but it looks like Maru's just thinking about what's coming next, and those mines get some big shots on these run-by Lings, cutting out a huge amount of the attacking force, and more drones dying somewhere throughout all of this. Another mine managed to get to the 3rd, 22 total. Oh, excuse me, and the natural. Well, looks like we're taking a trip to Mine City, Maynard.
It is, and it's very hazardous for Rogue's health right now. He's lost 22 drones in the main and natural. I think the 3rd might have taken a mine or 2 as well. And the mines at home for Maru have not been too bloody bad either. The Banelings have got Baneling speed. He's looking for some SCV damage. The 3rd base looks very juicy here on the SCV line. I think he's going to get a few up there for sure. There we go. Natural as well. 16, 17 SCVs going down. Rogue hitting back against Maru. And as the dust settles, the Zerg finds himself still with a comfortable worker lead, even with all that early game damage.
I mean, doing that amount of damage without taking anything back on the other side, we would start to be talking about game number 2 potentially. But Rogue, one, to not let it completely go off the rails. If he has a chance to make something happen, he's going to go for it. We know that he can bring out those big aggressive plays as well. There's still a couple of mines scattered. Those are going to be very important. And as you were saying earlier, I love the way that Maru's going with this heavy mine style. This kind of makes me think back to some little bit of TY, GSL, mines here, mines there, mines everywhere, drops all over the place. And it's hard to deal with these this early on, too, because you don't typically have the setup for the drilling claws either. And now the Queens are just running around all over the place trying to stabilize things while Maru gets ready to take his 4th.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say though, Rogue did a pretty good job at handling that next wave of the Widowmines. While they haven't been completely cleaned up yet, and they're in really annoying positions, only 4 drones so far. Maru pushing the 4th base now with his ball of Marines. It is just Marines here, so they're very weak to the Lingbane, but the Lingbane doesn't seem to be in position. Going for the drone line here, getting a few more of those. Has to load up the medevacs before the Hydras take him down, so a good bit of damage there from Maru. Mine fires off again, but looks like it just hit the Queens. No real harm, no real foul there for Rogue. And that one in the natural, rather on the edge of the natural, completely out of range of anything nice.
And this is one of those situations where it gets really annoying because your queens are running all over the place, trying to get these pickoffs, trying to get these hits. But and thankfully, with the extra energy that he has, he can stack a couple of injects on these hatcheries. But it's a bit unwieldy, you know. Those don't get picked up by that army hotkey. You're kind of running them around separately. It's messing with a little bit of the creep spread. It's gonna, and actually, you know, now that I say that, the creep spread Maynard, it's hardly really gotten outside past where Rogue's been this whole game. Another benefit of Maru's endless pressure. A Rogue, as you've said, he's managed to weather the storm a bit. If he gets up to lurkers, that lurker den, the hive are coming together. Those are always going to be the big, like, okay, you can't push into me once I get the lurker set up. But I think with Maru's 2-2 coming in very shortly, this is going to be another difficult moment where Rogue needs to make a big stop.
Yeah, certainly, and it really feels like at the moment Rogue kind of needs to weather the Terran storm here, not get too much damage from the bio and the mine, and just get that Hydra and Lurker count up and get those upgrades coming as well. Obviously with Hive finishing up and getting those Lurker tier 3 upgrades, his army just gets straight up better than Maru's until the tank count gets pretty high. That's a third factory, by the way, Nate. Maru's not taking any chances here on those Hydras and Lurkers. He's going to be triple making tanks shortly in our future, I feel. Oh, Widowmine hidden behind the Bailey Nest, but doesn't get as many drones as it could have gotten there. Just the one on the edge. A big Ling flood through the middle of the map here from Rogue, just looking for some damage on potentially the 4th base there of Maru, which just got placed an extra command center right next to it. Nice and low on hit points there for Rogue to get the cancel on it. Ooh, some tanks potentially exposed, but yeah, Rogue really just respecting Maru's defenses here and keeping those Lings out in the map, but looks like you might have to bring him home. Terran's knocking on that front door again pretty hard.
Yeah, Maru bringing this endless pressure. At no point has he stopped trying to send forces over to attack the Banelings. Caught behind the Hydras and the Queens did not help either, Maynard.
Did not indeed. A friendly fire on that mine, but a lot of Lings died in the making of that film. And this hatchery here at 12 o'clock also gets target fired. Big pick off there for Maru, knocking the Zerg down to 3 bases again while comfortably enjoying 4 bases of income. Looking good for Maru at the moment.
And how is that mine still there? 9 kills. He's just hanging out. He's relaxing. And this one's, they're taking pot shots at the Queens. That next one actually could take out 1 or 2.
Oh.
This mass middle mine strategy, getting so many Zerglings, continuing to try and suffocate that Zerg economy. Once in any game, when you see that Terran on the same number of bases as the Zerg, that is always a good sign for the Terran player. Maru up 50 supply, 2-2 upgrades done, 3-3 on the way. Lurker range is going to finish shortly, but they're still not the fastest units in terms of bouncing around against those attacks. The Vipers can kind of try to help with pulling those units, but once they unload, it doesn't get much easier. So Lurkers are going to run all the way up into the main, trying to burrow and push these guys out, but Maru is also ready to hit from the front at the same time.
He certainly is. I mean, if Rogue can hold on and get the lurker count a little bit higher and maybe get something done with this Nidus Worm across the map, maybe, but it feels like he's starting to lose a little bit of steam here. Starting to get a little bit closer with that army supply. Obviously, the Viper, a fantastic unit to come back with the lurker in conjunction, but the 12 o'clock base dies again. Maru getting another pick off there. Widowmine connecting with the Overseer as that drop finally gets cleaned up. Maru losing a lot of his army supply, but the macro machine does not slow down. He's up 40 army supply here, Nate, just about, and he is going to come again with another wave.
This has been just a nightmarish to watch. Any Zerg players watching, shield your eyes, tell your children to go in the other room because Maru is going for an old school beat down on Rogue right now. Beautiful splits on the Marauders outside by that 3rd base that's trying to be rebuilt again, but the Lurkers die. Hatchery does not get canceled this time, and Adaptive Talons is going to finish. So these are the really core integral upgrades for this army composition. I mean, it's comparable.
Oh, man.
It's comparable to that Stim and Combat Shield to get those Lurkers up with the range upgrade, with the burrow upgrade.
And look at those trades, Nate. We just saw the resources lost between the 2 players there. And normally that's like kind of okay, for like not great for the Zerg, but kind of okay because normally the Zerg's on 80 drones and 5 bases, right? But Rogue has not been able to secure that kind of economy this game, so it's the trades are really hurting him. Gets a pick off there on that command center. That's no cancel. That is a kill, so nicely done by Rogue. But the real story is here. Can he stop the push of Maru, who is now teching into Ghost to help out with the Vipers and with the Lurkers?
Now, that's going to be the most important thing, right? Not only getting those snipes potentially on the Lurkers, you're going to need to have a little bit of buffer for them, but being able to go for space control and, well, I mean, let's face it, we've seen Maru do some magical things with nukes in this tournament. Not to suggest that something like that's going to happen again, but you know what? I don't think I could complain if it did. With those Widow Mines, too, generating insane value.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a nuke, but there's definitely been some nice splash damage here, some tasty splash damage from Maru. Lurker count starting to get up again, but of course the snipes going down. The Ghosts showing their strength here against that Lurker comp, getting some shots off of the north side, and Rogue forced to tap out of game 1 as Maru just chokeholds him out of game 1 there on Death Aura. Well played there from the Terran.
Yeah, that was really fun to watch. And, you know, that's the kind of build, I think, watching that as Terran players, Maynard, that gives us a little bit of a rush, you could say, seeing that the command center first into double gas, but the quick second barracks, and then not just like, oh yeah, I'm doing kind of a greedy 2-on-1. No, I'm going to go super hard on the setup here. I'm going to go super hard on the setup that revolves around using those factories and using those Widow Mines in a huge numbers.
Yeah, I really love that really fast second factory Widow Mine massing play because of how just common it is and how prevalent Zergs are with just relying super heavily on Ling Bane. And not just at the start of the game, but just in general. The Zerg is either going to go straight Ling Bane up in a hive, or Ling Bane Muta these days, or Ling Bane Hydra. The Ling Bane is always there. It's part of the picture. And you have all those Widow Mines. Sometimes in a game like that with Maru, you can just kind of break the back of that army of the Zerg and just trade. And without the Zergling, those bio armies cannot be stopped from getting those hatchery cancels, queen kills, drone kills, you name it. It's a very, very tough and cool new style that Terrans have been showing for the last few months.
Yeah, it's been super fun to watch, too, because the way that was all set up, right? We were talking about Hellbats, we were talking about Marines. Do you have the Baneling nest ready or not? But those things aren't really important if Maru's not really committed to having to attack with those units, right? He didn't have to push with the Marines and the Hellbats. He was able to wait for the Widow Mines to come into play. That patience was super important too, because Rogue invested a ton of his resources and his larva into a ludicrous number of Zerglings and Queens just because he didn't have the Banelings, right? So you need to have an overwhelming number of units to defend those attacks. If you don't, Maru A moves and kills you. If you do, well, Maru patiently sits and waits for his drilling claw mines to blow up, what was it, 23 drones? And that was, well, let's just say, not a fun way to go out for the Zerg player. We are loaded into game number 2, spawning in the northeast, leading 1-0 in the blue for Team Envy. He's Maru.
A brilliant first game from him, but his opponent in the bottom left, far from done. One of the greatest Zergs to have ever touched the game from Dragon Phoenix Gaming. This is Rogue. Did I say greatest Zergs, Nate? I mean greatest players. Definitely in contention for that GOAT argument that people seem to argue about.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that is one of the coolest things about getting to this stage of the tournament, right? Anytime IEM Katowice, BlizzCons of old, the comment that we always get to have when we reach, even in the round of 12 of this tournament, we were having these kind of chats about these matchups are they're more than enough to be a final in almost any other tournament. Right?
Oh yeah.
If you somehow slept through all 10 days of Katowice, which would be really impressive if you somehow did not see anything of this tournament with how long we've been doing it, especially with some of the highlights almost making major international news, right? But you've got if you just, someone was just like, oh yeah, Maru versus Rogue was the final. You know, there's no part of your mind that just tries to brush that off, right? If you're like, oh yeah, it was Raynor versus Dark. No, those were in the round of 8. They did end up being bangers, as we've already had a strong start to this series, but of course that first match was just, I mean, we were all, I was sitting there biting my nails in the back. I had no idea what was going to happen. I was looking at Mutalisks coming out from Dark. I'm starting to cry, and then all of a sudden Raynor's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to keep this one fun and interesting for all you guys out there that love seeing these up-and-coming players kind of really take it to the best of the best, and it's made this tournament just freaking awesome, Maynard.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the early stages here of this TVZ with everything looking very normal. The third base about to go down here for Rogue at a very normal time as well. Actually, maybe 10 seconds a little bit quicker, but yeah, pretty normal game so far. I mean, just to talk about the series as sort of like a macro level, having a look back at it, we've got 3 IEM champions, 3 Intellectual Masters Katowice champions in this round of 8. Dark, the world champion, just got eliminated. We got another world champion with parting. I think the only one that's not a champion here is Raynor and Clem. The 2 European players haven't really been a world champion in IEM or in the WCS circuit yet, the global final circuit. But you know what? They've also won Premier tournaments. They are all champions. Every single player in this round of 8 a champion. So Oh, man, you are absolutely right, though. Like, every series, you wouldn't bat an eyelid at saying that this is the grand final, this is a best of 7 for you know, all the cookies, for every single marble. Like, this is just as stacked could be, and how could it be any different for this big tournament?
Yeah, it's always a magical day when we get to watch the biggest titans of StarCraft go up against each other. So we have the factory now swapping over to the reactor, it looked like, as that medevac comes out. So there is a mine there. A few Hellions. Is he going to try to drop the mine and run the Hellions by? Is he going to try to drop the Hellions and just kind of chill with everything else? I think the Marine mine drop with the Hellions kind of pushing the front makes a lot of sense. The Queens will likely be watching the front of that natural, as Dark is kind of just, he really is just pumping out the Queens, the Lings, and the drones. We're not seeing a big commitment in anything else at this point. He's just powering up, not looking for early tech or upgrades.
Now, this build from Maru is pretty interesting, though. Pretty fast medevac going across the map. Liberator queued up next. Obviously, Tech Lab on the barracks, so he can get up to the next phase of his plan here. But it is a Hellion medevac Liberator, so a multi-prong harassment here from Maru. Looks like the main is where the medevac's headed, but Rogue kind of reading him like a book here. I think there is a winner mine in that payload.
Love that
does
spot.
borrow that. Oh, it burrows. Goodbye, Lings. See ya. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, that's a lot of, I mean, it seems like, oh yeah, just a couple Lings, but that's so much larva this early in the game to have to get units out to actually defend against this. Then the Marines fighting on the edge of creep away from that Spore Crawler. They are more than happy to stand and fight with the medevac, healing them. Another Queen drops. Hellions coming in through the natural. Drones are lining up. Maynard going up that ramp. Will they get away? At least 3 picked off at the start of this one, and another Queen killed.
All right, everyone in Twitch chat, get your paper plates out. It's a barbecue. Get ready. Pick your favorite sauce, dry rub, wet rub, whatever you like. There is plenty of meat for everyone. Those drones still stacked up. The Hellions still barbecuing through tons of them here, but not just drones, also killing Lings. Rogue taking some pretty critical damage here. He is, of course, going to be able to recover, and his plan is to drop that Roach Warren. Does Rogue make something happen with this Roach Warren, or does he just try to chill at home, use the Roaches defensively, and just wait? Oh, that Liberator as well, 6 kills. Looks like part of it lava there at the third base, denying, I mean, 14 drones dying, and also looked like maybe 12 more drones just chilling there, not mining. Big income advantage there for the Terran, a big spike.
Yeah, and I also, like you pointed out, the Liberator will kill the larva that spawn on the hatchery as well if you target them, so you can actually delay the Zerg's economy in an even more pressuring way, which limits, of course, their production, because everything Zerg comes from that larva. And Maynard, man, this game is already getting intense. I'm feeling stuffed from that Kansas City pulled Zergling barbecue we just had. But don't worry, because now the second helping is coming up. We've got some Roaches on the way with a whole lot of Lings behind him.
Yeah, it looks like Rogue doesn't want to play the long game here. Doesn't want to do the sit back and recover play that I put up as an option. Rogue's like, nah, the option here is go. I'm going to use that lava on attacking units, and I'm going to tear this Terran's face off. How dare he barbecue my babies? I'm going to go over there and just rip him to shreds. Let's see if it works out for the Rogue, though. I was going to say the Roach, but really is the Roach is the backbone for this push. You can't do it with just the Lings. The Ravagers, the Roaches need to assist as well. Tank up here, but Maru's going to hold that wall. The Lings are in.
Yeah, the siege tank does manage to unsiege and get picked up in just the last little bit of time that he had. Was also able to close the front door too, kind of cutting off some of the Lings from the Roaches and Ravagers. The Liberator starts to come back. This is really such an important moment for Rogue, because you have to take advantage of this while you still have the Terran caught off guard. Those Ravager Battles are doing a lot of damage, but the SCVs are coming in. Marines are still dealing damage. The Liberator's got a lot through. Almost wouldn't even hate to see the SCVs try to mineral walk a little bit. Yeah, they get the surround on the Ravagers. There's a lot of surface area for them to hit, and Maru holds.
Wow.
GG, a game 2 victory for the Terran.
That looks really dicey, but when you think about it, Maru was up 20 workers at that point. He had SCVs to lose. He could throw a few workers away for the greater good. You know, I won't see too many people get away with that, but Maru, of course, getting away with it there in that game. And the counter all in there from Rogue, not enough to get him a win in the series so far. Maru already on match point in what feels like a 17-minute series, Nate.
Yeah, I didn't realize that we actually changed the stream title from IEM Katowice to StarCraft Professional Speedrunning, as Maru has deftly won the first 2 games very quickly, and even in that second game, you know, it was like a husk of Rogue being propped up that was like, okay, this is it, this is my last punch before I'm completely out of it. The economy took such a battering, losing the Queens early on, losing all of those Zerglings to 1 Widowmine shot was just way too much for him to be able to handle. And that's what Maru's been really good at this tournament. I think we were all kind of wondering how fast he would be, whether the wrist would be a concern. But when you're making triple prong attacks with like only 10 units on the field, I think you got to be feeling pretty good, Maynard, right?
Thank you for calling me Maru. I feel my MMR growing without even being inside the video game right now. See, that Rogue is obviously feeling the pressure here. His tournament life is on the line. This tournament is his stomping ground, Nate. He just keeps winning it. He keeps going deep. He's stopped before the semifinals. Rogue? That just doesn't make sense. Not in this tournament. And we are one map away from that being a reality here. Maru just really all guns blazing, we're using those builds. And, you know, to be fair, like those are the kinds of builds that kind of can just straight up win you the game. So it's cool that Rogue actually survived long enough to have a counterplay, and effective as it was. But Maru, he said in his interview, he's like, I want revenge. I'm sick of Rogue just, you know, pushing me in my locker and bullying me and taking my lunch money and pulling my pants down in front of the girls I like. I'm going to get him back. I'm the big kid now.
Yeah, and you know what? He's clearly, he's got that maturity, he's got that poise, and he's staying hydrated too, Maynard, and he's jacked. That's right. He wears the freshest clothes, eats at the finest restaurants, and hangs with the hottest dudes. What more could you want as we're loaded into game number 3 on Romanticide?
And the top left here currently on match point. This is Team Envy's Maru. He's being cheeky.
And his opponent in the southeast position as the Red Zerg, representing Dragon Phoenix Gaming, he is Rogue.
Now Rogue ain't done yet. Maru going for something very cheeky here in game 3. Going to go for the multiple barracks Marine rush here. And, I mean, this is actually, Romanticide, for some reason, to me, feels like one of the most popular proxy maps out of the map pool here. Out of the 7 maps we have, Romanticide is just more often than not going to have those weird proxies in pretty much every matchup. You know, TVP sometimes get the factory starport proxies over there with the Hellion drop. TVT usually has the barracks proxies there as well for the Reaper rushes. It is just a very popular spot. So in that sense, I kind of feel like Rogue is likely to scout it. Yeah, Overlord changes trajectory. He's going to scout it for sure.
And this is really important, of course. I mean, Maru is known for this, right? I don't think anybody goes into a match against Maru not expecting that at least one of the games we're going to see that proxy breakout. Maru was doing this earlier in the tournament as well. I remember when we were casting his group stage, if it was group stage games or earlier in the bracket, but he's busted this out. So Rogue, the response is going to be really important here. How much is he going to pull? How much is he going to commit? Because, well, I mean, there's nobody who 2-racks is really quite like Maru does.
Yeah, it's hashtag built different. We're going to see how he does here. The SCV's coming on in. Rogue just seems unbeknownst to the danger within, but now, of course, he knows what's up. He's got the Lings and the Queens on the way, and the natural hatchery already taking a bit of pepper from that Marine. Big drone pull from Rogue, though. Huge drone pull. Going for a bit of a drill here.
And he doesn't want to give any chance for these Marines to get a good position and get inside that bunker, but the drones have already started to die. It's not like this has been a super clean push out from him. 4 dead drones. The Lings are coming out, though. The bunker at 90% will get canceled. So, you know what? I got to say, he's prevented the worst case scenario. I think the last time we watched this, there were a few more than 6 that died, but that's still very painful. Maru up 4 workers, and let's not forget, of course, he's Terran. That means he's got mules, so that little, oh, is it 21 to 17? A little more like 24 to 17, and that's a lot of cash coming in, Maynard.
Right, that's fold money, Nate, and that's how you get those big expensive items like your Hellions and your factories and your starports and whatnot. And don't forget natural command centers. We've got one here on the main. At the edge of the main, of course, Maru's not going to take too many chances against Rogue. I mean, a good hold from Rogue. He lost 6 drones, which sucks, but at least did not die, did not let any bunkers get up, and is going to be able to recover. And hopefully, for my sake and for your sake, because I like a long series, and for Rogue fans out there, puts up a bit of a fight here in the early to mid game against Maru, who, you know, we're going to have some breathing room as the Terran takes the natural, Zerg getting their upgrades, and just heading towards a 3rd base.
Oh, yeah, and it's definitely fair to bring up, too, I think, as well, that the you know, Maru kind of gets a lot of flack for the performance outside of GSL too. That's one of those things people love to constantly bring up and poke fun at. Be like, oh, guy can't really do quite the same magical things that he does when he doesn't have, you know, a week to prepare for every single specific matchup that he could have. But he's been coming in hot, looking really strong. I think if you're a Maru fan watching this, you've got to be feeling good. I think this game, whether even if you're not able to kill the Zerg opponent with that 2-Rax, you step in the driver's seat, you know? You're dictating terms to the other player. Even if it won't kill them, they have to play around what you are doing in those situations, and that's always a good way to throw somebody off from any sort of game plan they might have had.
And it really feels like Rogue hasn't been able to show off his game plan too much in either of the games that we've had so far. Game 3, of course, there is going to be a timing with the Terran as the Medivacs head towards that, come out of that reacted starport there. As Stim gets closer to done. Terrans are always going to use their upgrade timings to try and do some pressure on the Zerg to see what they can get done. 4 Hellions here. Going to get a creep tumor there. Not too bad, but nothing really critical. Just a bit of a scout, making sure that everything is normal. Oh, okay. Medivac swinging in from the north here to get those Hellions inside the main. Now, this could be a little juicier. Is Rogue picking up?
Hellions
putting down.
No vision on him. Gets at least 3 on the way in. The drone's running for the ramp. 6+ now pulls them to fight, and Maru is absolutely slaughtering Rogue's economy.
Oh, Twitch chat, you had to get your plates out again. You got to get ready. Ling counterattack here from Rogue. Not too many Marines or really anything in the natural, but some Marines on the high ground. So the natural is a ghost town. The SCVs have evacuated, but there are more Marines holding that front door. And it looks like while Rogue is doing a lot of damage here, losing those 14 drones is certainly the lion's share of it.
It hurts a lot more for the Zerg when you can't call down robots from space to pick up minerals for you. And the tank, of course, covering from the high ground that mineral line, too. So Maru, you know, in this position, the Terran player is always going to have a little bit of an easier time on the defensive once those tanks come out. Once Stim is done, those Marines run out and they shoot super fast. But what does Rogue have to show for this early game? Do we that mineral line absolutely devastated? He did get the lair, but I don't think he's even had the opportunity to try and get into any sort of tech. Boots up 3 extractors. These Lings are going to push the Hellions away, but the Medivac is also there too, so Maru's willing to do a little fancy footwork micro, and man, that's got to be frustrating for Rogue. He can't even try to jump on top of these.
Looks like Rogue is just going straight for Spire here. Certainly the flavor of the month, or I guess the flavor of the last half of the year, going for the Muta tech here in this matchup. We'll see if it works out for him. I just don't see Banelings, though. Like, it feels like without Banelings, this is a very tough unit cop to happen. There's the Baneling Nest finally from Rogue, getting Spire before the Baneling Nest. I mean, you can see where Rogue's plans are, where his laser eyes are set on, and that is the flying, harassing unit that honestly almost won Dark the game in Game 5 there against Raynor in a different matchup. It is still such a powerful unit, but you gotta get there. And Maru is not going to give Rogue that breathing room. As Combat Shield gets closer and closer to done, all these Marines about to get 10 more hit points. He's gonna knock on this front door, and Rogue is without Banelings. He's gonna have a pure Ling Queen defense.
And in the early stages of the game, that's something that people love to argue about, how good or how well that can work. But I think when you reach the point where the Terran's starting to get those upgrades together, you've got siege tanks, multiple Medivacs covering you, Hellions in the back line to watch for these little backstabs. It gets a whole lot harder. In this map, too, that position that we just saw that siege tank on is absolutely filthy. There is no easy way to reach that tank with the Zerglings, but you can't send all of them to the back door because the Marines are still going to be coming at your base, and here they are. Only 4 queens to defend. The Marines can handle those.
And it looks like Rogue was maybe a little bit indecisive there. The Lings went out to the middle of the map, potentially catch the tanks on that area, but had to come back to the third base as the Marines started killing the Queens and doing some more damage here at that base. There's a bit of a surround, some Lings coming in, but really an underwhelming surround there from Rogue. Maybe even non-deliberate to just send in 4 or 5 Lings. It was kind of weird. He's still feeling the heat here from Maru, who's honestly in the first phase of his plan. There's no Baneling still from Rogue. He's barely even started, like he hasn't started Baneling speed. He's just on Ling Mutas against a guy with a bunch of Marines that are on their way to having 1-1.
And at the very least, it pushes these tanks back. It buys you that very small amount of time. But Maynard, you just said it. There's no Banelings. Mutalisks are cool. They're flashy. They're fun. They kind of fly around with their farts through space. But they don't fight armies head-to-head. It's about the one thing that they really can't do. And that's, I think, going to become a problem because Banelings are what you need for the Marines. But then you think about the economic situation of this game and you remember that, well, Banelings aren't exactly cheap units either.
Certainly not, and Rogue has been living paycheck to paycheck with his cash here, and a lot of that money has been going into the Zergling and Mutalisk fund. Means that the Baneling fund has completely lost investment here. Armory starts up for Maru, really not missing a beat with his macro. He's going to be hitting 2-2 pretty much immediately as 1-1 finishes. The Muta's finding some damage though. Here we go, a free tank. Nice pick off there for Rogue. So have to do a little bit more than that with these Mutas, but just keeping them alive is a good start. Link's trying to attack in the third base here with Maru having a tank. Little bit protected there by the Hellions and the Marines, but looks like the Muta's going to pick that one off too. That was a good flyby there from Rogue, getting a good counter blow.
Yeah, and these are the moments, these are the little opportunities he needs to carve out for himself, because Rogue going for this Mutalisk option, we talk about, you know, as I was saying, you can't really fight the army with it, but if you can bring the pressure to keep the opponent home, if you can shut down little medevac move-outs like this when they're not quite with the army, every little bit that you can take from your opponent in this situation is another couple seconds to get those extra minerals, another couple seconds to finish an upgrade, and another couple seconds to spread that creep so that when you do eventually have to face the music of Maru's army, maybe you'll have enough to turn it around. But outside of that, I think he's still mostly just building the mutas, right? There's not a core of banelings or anything sitting back home waiting for speed. Is there? I think he's just getting, yeah, is it just these 6?
I think that might be his first half a dozen there, Nate. Yeah, Baneling speed is, of course, nearly done, so Rogue knows he's not going to be able to just go Ling Muta this whole game. You do need Banelings. He has to respect the fact that the Marines are going to get pretty huge here in count for Maru. But the Mutas are doing their job for sure here for Rogue. He's doing harassment damage, he's keeping them alive, and he's keeping Maru at home. All those things extremely important as Rogue just solidifies that big 4-base economy, the 70 to 80 drone economy, picks off the refinery as well, which is also a decent pick off because, you know, Maru is trying to get some pretty heavy gas units here, like the, you know, the Thor, a couple hundred gas upgrades, etc. Marauders also cost a little bit of gas, so any bit of gas denial still nice here, any bit of damage still nice here. Anything with these mutas is great for Rogue as he keeps the Terran pinned in the Thatchel and the third, slowing down the fourth as well, actually.
Yeah, this is, and so that fourth base is actually just really, really late, right? Like considering the state of the game. So this first move out, at least the creep is a little bit further than the last map or two. He'd never really had a chance to set that up for the, or at least in game 1, right? The only one that went a little bit longer. As a couple Banelings are going to grab, looks like 5 SCVs from the third, but the extra barracks are going to boot up. And the real big question is, at what point does Maru feel comfortable trying to move out? Because he's, as you said, and as we've talked about, Rogue has done a great job at keeping him home. Well, that Thor splash is... Whew. Sorry, I was getting a little warm over here in my office, Maynard.
Yeah, I had to pull the collar and let some steam out there for a second. That was right in the middle of the pack of those Mutalisks.
Yeah.
I feel like when 2-2 finishes, that's the perfect time for Maru to go out there. He's got drilling claws as well. I don't see too many Widow Mines left with his army, but obviously with the Thors, a couple Widow Mines and 2-2 bio, I feel like that's a great time to push. Gets the armory there and denies +1 attack. Also, without the armory, Maru cannot keep making Thors. So that's a nice little move there from Rogue. Gets in the main as well, largely unprotected, picks off the turret. Another great drive-by there with his Mutas, or flyby, I guess. Mutas don't fly.
You know what, Maynard? I think if those Mutas want to believe that they're basically driving themselves, then I'm willing to let them have that. You know, even Mutalisks have dreams, right? Maybe I don't really know how hive minds work.
We'll be in one day, Nate. Don't you worry.
Yeah, but the important part of that, and I also just, I guess this map ends up being more of a factor than we really talked about earlier, but there's a lot of airspace for these Mutas to kind of hide, to juggle around in space, and he wants to bring the Mutas in with a little bit of a Baneling run by towards that mineral line again, but possibly getting the Marines. Tanks are there to shut it down, keeps the building command center alive too.
Yeah, pretty much loses nothing there. It was also a cute little macro trick there from Maru to just grab those Marauders immediately and stim them only into the Banelings to try and, of course, force an inefficient trade there from Rogue. So good moves there from Maru, just trying to make every single little bit count. Still pinned in his base, though, 2-2, and Maru's still at home dealing with the Mutas. Thor getting another volley there. The Marines trying to hug the edge of the map here. But again, like you mentioned, Nate, just a huge dead space there that the Mutas can hide in. Only the Thor, I feel, has the range, but I think it needs the medevac actually to see that far. Not even that.
He can't actually reach the ones when he was punching them up the furthest in the back. And you think about that, he's also messing with his mining. He's spending a ridiculous amount of money on missile turrets just to try and get that buffer so he can leave his base. And as soon as he sees that, Rogue goes in, he's picking off workers, he's killing those turrets, and the Banelings are going to try to crash into that fourth. He's looking for opportunity everywhere. SCV's exploding alongside that expansion.
An opportunity he does find, killing 16 SCVs and the planetary. Maru hitting back though. He's not just killing one hatchery, he's getting 2 hatcheries here and a handful of drones as well. A lot of the drones mercifully letting them live as they long distance mine back home, but getting 2 hatcheries there. Zerg knocked down to 4 bases again. So it's kind of reset the board a little bit. Maru's army alive in the middle of the map, trying to trade against those Banes, trying to split against those Banes. That's a lot of Zerg. Widowmine's fire as well. Oh, big connections on the Banelings, but a lot of the Marines have died, and there are enough Mutas to clean this up.
You know what? As every second that passes in this game goes by, Maynard, I'm liking more and more the situation that Rogue's been able to put himself in. He was basically with no defense, right? He got the lair, he took all that economic damage, said, I'm going full throttle on the Mutas. The Mutalisks will keep Maru at home so that I can rebuild, expand, and get my tech and upgrades. And here he is at Hive, Adrenal Glands, 3-3 is on the way, Ultralisk Cavern, and he still has that Mutalisk core that's forcing Maru to make these, like I said, all of these missile turrets are all over his main, all over his natural. They were all over the third before they got blown up, but we had about a 7-minute stretch where Maru couldn't actually walk across the map. And we're kind of headed back into that direction because these Mutas, they're not going anywhere. They're going to keep this pressure up until Maru gets a money shot with those Thors.
I mean, the community was screaming, shrieking at professional Terrans. More than 1 turret in your mineral lines. Rogue says 2 is still not enough. You must build a 3rd. As he just runs through those 2 turrets like nothing and kills some SCVs as well. Maru potentially feeling a bit of frustration here, and also knowing that 3-3 is just around the corner, gonna fight fire with fire and head that army across the map. That's a big ball of Terran. Cluster of Burrowed Banes here from Rogue, but kind of out of range of the meat of this bio army.
Yeah, the Burrow Baneling potential is always really nice, but the downside, of course, is that they are not going to be able to participate if that opportunity does not present itself. However, the whole army is walking back. I don't know. If all the Marauders step over, do you still take it? Maybe.
I can't believe how accidentally Maru threaded the needle there on its Banelings. He surrounded it and walked past on both times on the way in and on the way out. But the Mutas still, of course, doing their job. They're definitely the MVPs in this game for Rogue. The Lings and the Banes need to pull up their socks and pull their weight because the Mutas are working so hard here. They're working overtime. The Lings and the Banes and Ultras on the way as well need to stop Maru from getting another big push where he picks off multiple hatcheries like just now.
Yeah, Ultralists are going to come forward. We have a lot of the Banelings through a choke point, though. The bio splitting beautifully. I mean, if there's one thing we know Maru can do, it's the micro, especially if those hands are feeling good. Notice the way he keeps the Marauders up front and still kind of fans them out a little bit. You want to try to retreat with the Marines, let the Marauders soak as much damage as they can, and then, of course, those Thors, those big mega chonkers. They are the anchor to that army. The Banelings are gone, Maynard. Just 9 of them on the map somewhere, maybe a few still burrowed, but if 20 Marines and 2 Thors can survive this, I don't know what Rogue is going to do.
I think Rogue might have to tap here, Nate.